Hi, and welcome to Authors at Google New York. It's my pleasure to introduce today Auden Schendler. Auden is the Executive Director and Community and Environmental Responsibility of the Aspen Skiing Company. He is responsible for improving the company's environmental performance at the ASC, which has won over 30 national and international awards for its environmental work, and is widely considered to be the environmental leader in the ski industry. The Aspen Skiing Company is the only ISO 14001 certified ski resort in the US and the only resort to have joined the Chicago Climate Exchange, a voluntary carbon emissions cap and trade program. Auden was previously research associate in corporate sustainability at Rocky Mountain Institute, a resource policy think tank, where he managed an environmental audit of the World Bank headquarters and helped research the book Natural Capitalism. His writing on sustainable business and life in the West has been published in Harvard Business Review, the Journal of Industrial Ecology, Rock, and many other journals. So it's my pleasure now to introduce Auden Schendler.
Thanks for that. Thanks for having me. My first slide is what you'd expect from the ski guy. And I put it up there because you want the ski porn slide and you want to feel entertained. The problem is my actual first slide is that. And if I started my presentation that way, you'd be so horrified to think that you now have to sit here for half an hour, which you don't actually, but to see this bleak, depressing vent in a closet is almost more than many audiences can take. But my goal here today is to make you think that that slide is more sexy than that slide by the end of the talk. And here's why. Any ideas what we're looking at here? What's that? Yes, but specifically, we're looking at a walk-in freezer. And a guy on the ground named Peter Olson, an engineer, he said, hey, this is a walk-in freezer. And the outside wall of this freezer goes to the outside, that exterior wall. So what if I cut a hole in the wall with a Sawzall and tied that to a thermostat, and so that when it got cold out, it just opened, turned off the compressor, and we got free cooling? Whoa, that is the act of replacing energy with intelligence, which is our job now for the next 100 years. And it's remarkable. Now, every story I'm going to tell you has a backstory, and here's the backstory on this one. This is cool, but it informs how we design new buildings. Because if you're building a restaurant in ski country, isn't that walk-in cooler always going to be on the exterior wall? That's pretty exciting, because now maybe every restaurant in Colorado has that, and maybe every restaurant in a cold climate has that, because we're getting free cooling all the time because we only operate in the winter. That's so sexy. It's sexier than that. That's what I'm going to talk about today. The context of my talk is that if you look at the history of the environmental movement, it started in a way with manageable problems. There were toxics when Rachel Carson wrote her first book in 1962, and there weren't these massive pressing issues like climate change. So if you were a business like Google and you did a highway cleanup program like we do, although on the East Coast I think that's more life-threatening, or if you did a good recycling program and had compostable silverware like we do at the X Games, which is a huge event, 50,000 people attend, you were sustainable. You were doing all you needed to do to achieve sustainability with our understanding of it at the time. That's changed, though, with climate. And if you look today, what's different today about climate change, I took my first course 20 years ago. It said the exact same thing in the science that we're hearing today. Here's what's changed. We're seeing it happen. This is an incredible slide of just time lapse in Australia in 2005. Brown means dry. Australia in 2003 had a 100-year drought. In 2006, they had a 1,000-year drought. Wait, you're supposed to have a 100-year drought every 100 years. Now you've had 1,000 and 100 in 3 years? And then in 2007, they kicked out their prime minister, John Howard, on the basis of climate in large part. This was the first climate election. I think you could argue that Obama was the second climate election. And that is profound. Australia was the only country other than the US not to ratify Kyoto. So we're seeing these things happen. I was in Australia a couple years ago driving through a beautiful wine country called the Yarra Valley, equivalent to our wine country in California. I called a friend recently and I said, how are things doing? It's in Southeast Australia. You can see on this map it's brown and it's on fire. And he said, well, the ski resorts are okay, but the Yarra Valley is gone. And he said, he used the word gruesome to describe what had happened there. Hundreds of people died, whole regions burned. And this is exactly what the climate models are saying we'll see more of. So as changes like the polar ice caps melt in front of us, and we know that those polar caps have that North Pole has been there, summer sea ice, solid in that exterior boundary you're looking at for 3 million years. And scientists are saying within 40 and possibly within 5, that summer sea ice is going to be gone. So we've gone from the press, which has historically been lazy and indolent on this, from them saying, well, is it happening? To it's happening, what do we do about it? And that change in conversation is crucial. But the point is that climate is the challenge of our time, and it has redefined everything. It redefined the idea of sustainability. It has redefined what it means to be a parent. It's redefined what it means to be a citizen. Religious faith now means solving climate change. Science means solving climate change. It's this uber problem, and it's a game changer. It's also horrifying. When you know as much as you all probably do, or as much as I do about climate, you want to almost get in the closet, turn the light out, grab your knees, and rock back and forth and order in Chinese food and bourbon. It's absolutely terrifying. We have to cut CO2 emissions 80% by 2050, almost 100% by end of century. That is almost impossible. And even if we do that, I talk about this in detail in my book, you're still going to see warming. You're still going to see flooding. Think about what Katrina did in terms of damage to our country and migration. Bangladesh, which is basically underwater now, has 150 million people, half the population in the US. We're not worried about Bangladesh flooding. We're worried about salt water getting into the wells. When 150 million people don't have water, you got a problem, and it's our problem. It's your problem. That's just the tip of the iceberg. People say, oh, we're going to have 3 degrees of warming. Well, 3 degrees of warming today, who cares? That's great. But here's the deal. 6 degrees Celsius of warming covered cooling, in the ice ages, covered North America with ice. These are profound changes. It's not just, oh, it's 73 today and it used to be 70. These are absolutely cataclysmic changes. So, okay, how do you avoid? Part of my talk is about how do you avoid going in the closet, rocking back and forth, and giving up. And my answer to that, in part, though I'm going to talk more about it, is the solutions to climate change. These technical solutions are beautiful. You all are involved in them in some way, I'm sure, but look at this picture. Historically, just those mountains in the back were considered beautiful. But this solar array is so pretty. I snapped this shot with a crappy electronic camera one day, and it's been in 15 national magazines. I got no royalties for any of it. But this is a new perception of beauty. The technical solutions to climate change are beautiful. And I want to talk to you about the realities now of actually implementing it. Because when you go out into the world, you hear the green gurus saying, this is easy, it's profitable, we should all do it. Green is green. It's green for the environment. It's also money, profitable. Well, when I came out of the nonprofit sector, this idealist, I went to the Little Nell, a 5-star hotel we own, the fanciest place on the planet, 5-star hotel in Aspen. And I went to the hotel manager and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change all the lights in your rooms and make them those twirly compact fluorescents. Here's the business proposition. It's going to save you, it's a 50% return on your investment. That's incredible. No businessman, I was told, or woman, would turn down that level of return. Well, what did Eric say? He said, no frickin' way. What? What's the problem? He said, when I go to Vegas and stay in a Motel 6, that's a compact fluorescent bulb. This is a 5-star hotel. I don't want people coming into the room, turning on the lights, humming cold, you feel like you're about to do surgery, or you've walked into a janitor's closet. So he said, we're not doing that. And here's how this played out. And you'll never hear this in the green community. You'll never hear it from the consulting community. I failed. I gave up. We never succeeded. And those rooms are still incandescent bulbs. Wow, that's harsh. You know why? Because in the sustainability movement, changing your light bulbs is sustainability 101. It's the easiest thing to do. It's the most cost effective. It often improves lighting. If you can't pull that off, you're not going to get anywhere. That's the first thing you do, not the last. There's some other hard stuff we have to do. So, why didn't he want to do it? Well, there was that customer service thing, but then there were all these issues that no one told me about. And here's an example. If you're a five-star hotel, every year some mystery guest comes by, has some wine, gets a filet, chats with the sommelier or the two master sommeliers if you're us. And that is the AAA five-star, five-diamond auditor. That person potentially gives you 5 stars again or downgrades you. And the hotel manager was concerned that because of the fluorescent light, he would get a bad feeling and possibly lose a star. Now, if you're a hotel manager and you lose a star, it's Armageddon. It's the end of your career. It's the apocalypse. You can't do it. So if someone says, would you rather lose a star or pay an extra 100 grand in utility bills and change the climate? Oh, 100 grand, change the climate. Because it's your career. And that's your only metric is the quality of the experience. So what does a smart college boy like me do? I call AAA. Would you guys downgrade a hotel based on fluorescent bulbs? No, no, no. Well, tell that to the hotel manager whose job depends on it. He's not going to take the risk, even if it's a 1% risk. So what I did was gave up, and I went down here to the garage. This is another one of those slides that could cause you to despair about my presentation. How many of you have heard of the Easy Bake Oven? A few people. Yeah, Easy Bake Oven, a little children's toy. You put in little berry pies and key lime pies and things like that, and you close the door and you turn it on. When I was a kid, they were called the Betty Crocker oven. I looked in one at a friend's house. I never had one. I always wanted one. And I looked in and I wondered, why is there a light bulb in there? Because why are we lighting the food? We should be heating it. And the reason there's a light bulb in there is that the incandescent bulb is one of the most spectacular, inefficient things ever created. The way it works is it gets so hot that it glows, and then it gives off light. It's almost this afterthought. It's as if we said, this room is a little cold. I'm going to get 35 computers and turn them on, and we're going to heat the room. It would be effective. We would heat the room. But that's so clumsy and messy. But that's what the Easy Bake Oven is, and that's what most incandescent lights are. This is a 400-watt space heater that happens to give off heat. Here's the business proposition to you, the hotel manager. Forget the rooms. I understand your concerns. I'm going to take out those bulbs. I'm going to replace them with a linear T8. Your lighting is going to get better. You're going to save $10,000 a year just in energy, but the project costs $20,000, so it's a 50% return on investment. The bulbs, these bulbs last 25,000 hours. These bulbs last 4,000. These bulbs cost $90 a piece. These are $4 a piece. The lighting's better. Some guy previously or during this time drove a Land Rover through the wall of the accounting department because he couldn't see. So the light would get better. Hopefully that wouldn't happen again. All those pillars we had to cover with carpet because people kept scraping Bentleys and Porsches while they were valeting the cars. So all that good stuff, and you keep 300,000 pounds of CO2 out of the air every year. Hotel manager, will you do it? No. Why? Auden, he says. And often people say, Auden, you idiot. That's often the precursor. I'm a hotel manager. I make money by selling 5-star experiences. If I've got 20 grand, I'm not going to redo lights in the garage that no one sees. I'm buying high thread count sheets. I'm buying better wine. I'm hiring a third sommelier. These are the challenges that a 5-star hotel manager says. Okay, so what do you do? What we did is we brought it to senior management and we said, guys, we have to do this. And here's what someone in senior management said: I don't believe those bulbs are going to save energy. Okay. Now, the person saying that was very religious. So this person believes in God, but it's easier for this person to believe in a supernatural being than it is an energy efficient light bulb. That's the kind of challenge we're facing. How do you change this person's perspective? Well, I put the COO of the company on a bike in front of all of senior management. The bike powered for incandescents. He's an ex-Marine, thought he was a tough guy, pedaling away, sweating. I let him go for a while. Then I flick a switch and they're compact fluorescents. It's like he's pedaling downhill. It's obvious. You see it. I brought a watt meter in and I showed how slow it turned with fluorescence versus incandescence. Still don't believe it. I want to see the bills go down. Your bills, if you retrofitted this room, your bills might or might not go down because you have electricity in your heating system and other places. It's a very small load. So how did we make this happen after 6 years of trying? Here's something, again, you'll never hear in the enviro guru sustainability world. How did we get it to happen? We rammed it down the guy's throat. And we did it by just simply saying we have to do it. I went to our CEO. I said, this has to happen, even if Eric busts his budget. Eric is a good guy. He's trying to do his job, but we must make this happen. And we made it happen. However, before we did it, we got it done, right? We had the approval. An engineer came in and said, oh, you can't do that. You can't use these bulbs. And I said, why? He said, well, in Oakland, these are the old bulbs. Someone did these new bulbs, and they took a baseball bat. They knocked them out, and then they attacked someone. And I said, okay, well, first off, Aspen isn't Oakland, but let's assume it is. Could you not take a baseball bat and knock out those bulbs? Yes. Okay, so that's not an issue, right? But we still can't do it. Why? Oh, because you can't pressure wash the ceiling. In the history of humanity, who has ever pressure washed the ceiling in a garage? And I asked that of the engineer, and he said, oh, yeah, you're right. And I had an aha moment. I realized they didn't want to do it just because they didn't want to do it. And the old environmental perspective is, these guys are so dumb. Don't they realize that our children's future depends? It's this, smug, you guys don't get it view on the world. Well, in reality, they're smart. They do their job well. Business as usual works. We know it. It's tested. And new technology has problems. So they're smart. And we can't be this, moral, hey, you got to do this because it's the right thing. We have to understand these challenges. Anyway, the point of that story is, the easiest thing to do in the whole sustainability movement with the biggest business return on investment was almost impossible for us. Now we got to cut CO2 80% by 2050. That's going to be a challenge. To do that, we have to completely rethink how we approach these questions. And Walmart's a good example. If Walmart, when they decided that they were going to go green, if they had said, we're going to ask our customers what we should do, here's what they would have said: buy some hemp, do bamboo floors, do some recycling in the store, and do some education. Walmart said, well, maybe that's right, but maybe there's a broader approach we should have. And they sat down with a professor at Brown University, and he said, you guys sell more stuff than anyone in the world. If you want to change the world, you got to change the stuff you're selling. So Walmart said, okay, we're going to sell 100 million compact fluorescent bulbs. Same bulb. It uses 3/4 of the energy of standard bulbs. Here's the problem. They were hard to find and they were really expensive. So Walmart said, we're going to put them in the sweet spot, right at eye level or on the edges of the aisles. And we're going to work with GE and other vendors to bring the price down to under $2. They used to be $15 a pop, and that was still a good return on investment. Walmart did it. And actually, I saw the Walmart Enviro person yesterday, and I had just given this presentation. I said they sold 130 million of these bulbs. That's equivalent to taking 2 500-megawatt coal-fired power plants offline, just in savings. That's one bulb in every American household. That's incredible. Actually, now they've sold 260 million, the woman told me. So that's astonishing. But the story isn't about that, because as with all my stories, there's a next story, which is that Walmart didn't just sell the bulbs. They helped drive the Easy Bake Oven bulb, the incandescent bulb, out of business. In Australia, it's banned by 2012. In California, I think it's 2010. In Ireland, it's going away. They're driving the thing out of business. So the point is, that's a huge lever, and Walmart pulled it. And that's what you have to say as a business. How can we pull the biggest lever possible? Now, you screw up doing this, the hierarchy that we've realized is its advocacy is way more important than anything else, because if you're going to drive a Prius and get everyone in your company to recycle, that might be cool, but you're not going to get CO2 emissions down by 80%. So do those things, do those individual actions, but recognize that changing policy at the highest levels is most important. Ford sat down and they said, let's think about this. What can we do? And they famously, several years ago, trying to go green, rebuilt their Dearborn plant. It was a Bill McDonough project. It cost $2 billion, a green roof, incredible, statement. Here's the problem. One, that roof leaks, apparently. Ford makes cars, and the cars suck historically on energy efficiency. That's what mattered. And they missed the boat. And I'm not standing here saying I'm a genius. I would have seen this. I probably would have built that building too. All I'm saying is we can learn from these mistakes. And the mistake was missing the obvious big picture. What have we done as a rinky-dink little ski resort in Colorado? Well, we got a call one day from some friends at Forest Ethics, and they said, hey, Kimberly-Clark makes Kleenex, and Kleenex has no post-consumer waste. We just had a conversation about that. No post-consumer waste in tissue. That means nothing recycled. That's crazy. You're making tissue that you're blowing your nose in out of ancient forests? Seems like a terrible idea. We looked at it and we said, we're going to join this boycott. The other problems were their forestry practices and their lack of engagement with the environmental community. And we said, we'll join this boycott. We spend $25,000 a year on Kleenex. It was a no-brainer to do this. We did it. And I made the mistake of talking to the press about it. And we got annihilated. It was a PR catastrophe. One columnist wrote an essay that said, eat a booger, save the planet, making fun of us. Another headline was the issue with tissue. Another headline was, Ski-Co says Kleenex, nothing to sneeze at. People were furious. This was seen as flagrant greenwashing. It's a corporation doing a little teeny thing that takes no effort and then taking credit for it. And people said, well, who are you to talk? You're using all this energy, true, and you're criticizing another company. And I went to our CEO and senior management. I said, look, I screwed up. Massive PR disaster. Worst thing I've done in the last several years. Sorry. Anyway, 2 weeks later, we got a phone call. It was the CEO of Kimberly-Clark. Kimberly-Clark is a $32 billion company. We are a little ski resort in Colorado. The fact that we were now engaging the CEO at the highest level in this company on forestry practices, post-consumer waste, climate change, they sent a team down to meet with us and we talked to them, represents it's asymmetric warfare. It's a rinky-dink operation pulling a huge lever and driving radical change. So my worst PR catastrophe of the year was the most important thing we did at that time. And we keep trying to think along these lines. I got a call one day in my office, again, from friends at the Natural Resources Defense Council. Hey, guys, will you file an amicus brief on Massachusetts versus EPA? And I said, yeah, 2 questions. What's an amicus brief? And what's Mass v. EPA? And they explained, Massachusetts versus EPA is the most important environmental lawsuit ever to go to the Supreme Court. It asked the EPA to regulate carbon dioxide, the primary greenhouse gas, as a pollutant, like mercury. It went to the court, and we filed this brief, which is just a supporting brief, and it won 5-4. Of course, it was 5-4. And we played a teeny part of it. But I'm not here from Aspen saying Aspen passed Mass versus EPA. I'm saying when we filed this brief, because we're such a weird little funky story, the press coverage of this went like this. 12 states, 3 major environmental groups, even our ski resort in Colorado support this thing. So we had a small part to play in this incredibly important legislation. But there's another story to that. 6 weeks after Mass v. EPA passed, For the first time in the history of the world, a review board in Kansas denied a coal-fired power plant. If you talk to anyone in the scientific community, you can't solve climate change and continue to build coal-fired plants. So this was monumental. And now you've noticed Obama using massive EPA to drive essentially a ban on coal. It's profound. We had a teeny part to play in this, and to me, it's amazing. I went to our CEO and I said, this is the most important thing we've ever done, including opening our doors as a ski resort in 1947. And he said, I don't think so. But it was critically important. Okay, so how else do you pull the lever? When you all go back home, wherever you live, Pittsburgh, Oklahoma, for Thanksgiving, and you sit around the table and you say, I was at a lunch meeting and there was this dude talking about climate. And Uncle Frank, over with a mouthful of turkey, says, isn't there some doubt on the science? Americans now are less convinced that climate change is happening in human cause. Why? Because there has been the most successful marketing campaign and most damaging in the history of the world, funded by ExxonMobil and other fossil fuel interests. This isn't conspiracy theory. Exxon said, we're funding it. They agreed, and they said, we're going to stop. We're not going to do it as much. So it's arguable that climate change is simply a marketing problem because we're not going to solve it unless we get more public support for change on this. So we said, when you do a ski ad in a magazine, they're all the same. You open the magazine, there's a picture of a skier on a blue sky day. Next ad, it's an ad for Whistler. Beautiful day, skier, fancy clothes. Next, it's all the same. So just if you wanted to differentiate yourself, you do something different. We started a 3-year campaign about climate change. Snow certificate of death. When we ran this, I got a call from someone who said, I've been in the advertising industry all my life, and they always told me never to associate your product with something bad, like death, for example. And our CEO said, I don't care. We're going to do it. We did a big solar array, a farm tied to a high school. It was the biggest in Western Colorado. But here's the thing. It didn't make a ton of energy. But when we had the grand opening, some people showed up. That's our owner, Jim Crown, on the side, influential businessman, and the governor of Colorado. Oh, Ken Salazar showed up too. We had a little chat with Ken Salazar. Now he's at Interior. So the solar array was essentially irrelevant. What mattered was the people and the levers we were able to pull talking to these guys. What do we say when we meet with Salazar and Ritter? Guys, you rock. You're doing great work on renewables. So we're further reinforcing, and we're business people. We're not environmentalists. 300 people in the community showed up. Yeah, we served beer. We provided food, but this was inspirational. It was an event. Think of it also as positioning our company in the world of sustainability. When you look at green businesses, they do sustainability reports. What's on the cover? Elk, mountains, rivers, children, goats. What do those things have to do with making chemicals or computers or anything? That's greenwashing. We said, you got to put trash on your sustainability report because that's what it's about. It's about this nasty process. This is a boneyard on our ski hill. Old leaky drums of crap. That's what we're doing. We're slogging through the mud. We're trying to solve these almost intractable problems. And it's beautiful. I did Photoshop that picture, but that's a pretty shot. I mean, it's worthy. You could hang that on your wall, maybe. I want to do a really quick example of this challenge, which is we have all the technical solutions we need to solve climate change today, but the problems are cultural. They're getting the policy done. They're implementing the stuff. We know how to solve it, but we're not waiting for a technological breakthrough. We have the technology. So for us, snowcats are a big problem. We use 260,000 gallons of diesel a year. We said 8 years ago, what if we use biodiesel? You make it out of soybeans or rapeseed oil or even French fry grease, and it reduces particulate emission, which is the big problem with diesel. Not exactly a climate problem, but you could argue there's some benefits with climate. Well, when you go to the vehicle shop manager, when college guy in the starched shirt goes to vehicle shop manager, Donnie, we have 3 vehicle shops. All the managers are named Donnie. And you go into Donnie, who has Carhartts on that are so dirty that they crinkle when he walks. And one time I said to Donnie, can I replace your brake cleaner with one that isn't carcinogenic? That has TCE and it's very nasty for you. He never uses gloves. He said, something's going to kill me. And he took his cigarette and threw it on the ground. That's who you're dealing with. When you go to Donnie and say, hey, let's put French fry grease in your snowcats, this is the look you get. And this is what they think I am. Hey, let's do this. I'm an idiot. And this is the actual response documented by me in the company when I proposed this. This guy's name is Gregor. And again, these guys are so ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. They're dumb. No. These guys are some of the best mechanics in the world. They work hard. Donnie takes no vacations. But here's the deal. Maybe he's got I guarantee he's got a huge mortgage. He's got children in college. He may have a sick family member. Why would he switch to French fry grease in a $250,000 snowcat, which he manages 30 of, and then it breaks down at 3 a.m? He has to come from Carbondale because he can't afford to live in Aspen, fix the thing at -20 in February, 3 a.m, and then we haven't groomed the slope because the cat broke down, so he has to answer to the CEO, and then he comes to me. Auden, I tried that grease and the cats broke down. And I say, Donnie, I studied biology. Sorry, man, I can't help you out. 30 cats, not opera. He's smart. He's not dumb. So how do you get past it? I submit you get past it with this device. You techno, nerdy, engineering types surely can guess what this is. Any guess? It's not a city thing. It's more of a rural thing. It's a giant crossbow. Correct. Now, what are you launching with it? You're not sending arrows out. You don't have to answer that. You already got your prize, Red Gold Star. This thing will launch a Green River cantaloupe 250 feet. And one day I was walking and I saw what looked like a giant crossbow. And I said, Donnie, what is that giant crossbow that appears to be in your shop? He said, that'll send a Green River melon 250 feet. Every year, at the end of the year, we have a meeting of mechanics, and we see who can huck a melon further, and Breckenridge beat us last year. Well, I went straight to the CEO's office at the time, Pat O'Donnell, kind of a tough guy, works out every morning for 3 hours. I said, Pat, and I just, 8 a.m., I held up a picture of this, and he said, come on in here. What is that? Melon launcher, send a melon 250 feet. We got to win. We got to win this contest. We got to beat Breckenridge. So massive corporate resources were thrown at developing the most powerful melon launcher in the history of the world. And it was the model was an arm that was tied to car springs. And it was so powerful that when we triggered it, the melon evaporated in place. And we lost the contest. And then the CEO said, well, you can't spend any more time or money on that because you spent your whole summer and we need to repair cats and stuff. Why am I telling you this story? Have I lost my mind? I'm telling you this story because we got to know the mechanics. And then we said, hey, after we did the melon thing, could we do 500 gallons of biodiesel? Okay, let's test it at Buttermilk. Then we'll try it on Aspen Mountain. We switched the whole company. And last year, we stopped using biodiesel after using it for 7 years because U.S. diesel standards changed and it got cleaner. So in the end, we're back where we started. But the point is, you can't overcome these barriers, and they're always cultural. They're not technological. Let me end with some thoughts here. When you look at the changes happening in the world on climate, again, you get it. It's pretty scary. That graph on top is not as scary as the bottom graph, which, if you look, this is 2005. It's gotten worse since then. The dark red is temperature anomaly in the world. Here's the problem. It's getting warmer exactly where it shouldn't be getting warmer, where we don't want it to get warmer. Because what's happening in those northern latitudes? What's the terrain like? It's all methane bog. Methane is 21, 22 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. This year had a 9-degree Fahrenheit temperature anomaly. 9 degrees hotter than normal. All those methane bogs are melting, and the methane is gonna, or is, but at some point could burp out into the atmosphere. That would be a positive feedback loop that we're not gonna be able to do anything about. It's gonna be a catastrophic problem. So it's absolutely horrifying. To get myself through the day, I've put a quote on my business cards historically. It's cheesy, sure, but the quote I had was for a while from this guy, Rene Dubos, a French-American microbiologist. He's the dude. This is the dude who coined the phrase "think globally, act locally." Um, Whoa, for me, that's pretty cool. He worked on tuberculosis. He was an environmentalist, and his quote was, "Trend is not destiny." We don't have to end up in this terrible place. But the more you know about climate science, the more you realize we're there. Even if we stopped emitting CO2 today, and actually the rate of emissions is going up, we'd have 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. We're going to see change. We're going to see sea level rise. We're going to see disease spread and migrations of people. So I needed a new model and mentor. This is the famous underground poet, postman, alcoholic, and fighter, Charles Bukowski, both drinking and smoking at the same time. And what he said is, what matters most is how well you walk through the fire. And that kind of combat setting is how I come to the office every day. I think Viking running into battle, maybe jacked up on fermented prunes and potato alcohol or whatever they drank. You know, you're just coming after, you're going into battle. It's as if I said to this room, and this is a perfect venue for it. I'm going to pick someone out of the audience, put you right there. Hey, you're going to fight Muhammad Ali in front of all of us now. And you're not just going to fight Ali today. You're going to fight Muhammad Ali from the 70s, the finest fighting machine ever created by the human species. You and Ali. Well, you say, no thanks. I got to program something or whatever you're doing, work on the database. And I put a gun to your head and I said, no, you got to do it. That's our challenge with climate change. You have to engage this scary problem in front of everybody. You have two options, though. With Ali, okay, you go up there, you cover up and let Ali pummel you into organ failure, and then you collapse on the stage. I submit, not so much fun. Your other option, though, is to pretend you know how to fight. Keep your chin down, you're right up, and try to knock the guy out. One, it's going to be more fun. Two, you might actually knock him out. You're still going to get your ass kicked. But the point is, if you have no choice, why not engage this problem with relish and joy and just a lot of energy? I used to give these talks, and I'd put up a slide of my daughter Willa, who's now 4. This is her when she was 2, and I'd say, this isn't our problem. This is Willa's problem, because she is going to have to solve this world we screwed up. Not true. Willa's not Generation Climate. We all are, because the top climate scientists, Jim Hansen at NASA, Rajenja Pachauri at the IPCC, say we have to solve this in 10 years. The decisions we make today on power plants, on buildings, on policy and infrastructure last for 50 to 100 years. We have to make the change in the next decade, or we fail. I don't know if you guys are skiers or kayakers like I am, or you take tests, but think about that okay, you're test takers. Think about that preparation process. You hate it. You're studying, you're scouting the river, you're looking at the ski run. But when it's time to go, you're relieved. And it's freeing to say, you're going to succeed or fail in the next decade solving climate change. Let's go. Let's kick some ass. I'm going to end, I keep saying I'm ending, but I really am ending, with these slides. These slides were made, these are maps of North America made in the 1600s. There's something about this map that no Italian cartographer in 1600 could possibly have known. Any thoughts? On the north of North America, there's a Northwest Passage drawn in, but it didn't exist. They just drew it in because they were so optimistic and hopeful. That passage wasn't sailed until 1904 by Roald Amundsen. It took him 3 years. It was a nightmare. People got killed. They got trapped in ice. Amundsen was trapped in ice for 3 years. This map is a perfect illustration of human nature. We're the most optimistic, can-do, hopeful people in the world, and we're also the masters of unintended consequences. Because the cartographer in Italy, I guarantee it wasn't saying, I'm going to draw this thing in because by 2007, I'm sure CO2 will have opened that thing from global warming. It was sailed in 2007 by a small boat. If you look at the people who were exploring the Northwest Passage, like William Perry, and you think to yourself, knowing generally about explorers, what was motivating them? Was it you think God and country and patriotism? And in fact, it was no such thing. If you look at their journals, as Barry Lopez did, he described them as courageous and bewildered and dreaming people who had difficult lives and had health problems, and it was a hard time to live. No antibiotics. Think about just that. And you ask, what were these guys doing? Well, that description is the same as all of us. This is humanity. What are we doing? What are we doing in this landscape? We're looking for meaning in our lives. And if you think about climate change, it's an opportunity to endow your life with a level of meaning that we haven't ever seen in the history of humanity, except for when great religions were started 2,000 and 4,000 years ago. Solve climate change, you solve poverty, you solve energy, you solve clean water, you solve disease, you solve you solve everything, air pollution. And that's why religion was founded. It was to give people a dignified life. People want to live a life of meaning and grace and hope and tolerance and dignity. And in conclusion, I love to talk about Kurt Vonnegut's quote about this Genesis story. The exile, Lot and his family were told by an angel to leave the cities on the plain. He's going to burn them down. You've heard this. Lot's wife, Kurt Vonnegut describes this. He says, but Lot's wife looked back, right? The story is she looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. Wait, no less an authority than God told you not to look back, but you looked back. And he turned into a pillar of salt, and Vonnegut says, so it goes. But that's why I love her, because it was so human. And if you think about it, you're leaving this city, and it's the place you grew up where your friends and family and your home was, and you turn around because you want to see what's going on. It's such a human act. And my point here is that given the opportunity to endow our lives by solving climate change, to endow our lives with meaning, grace, dignity, to make yourself part of a greater movement and provide this incredible level of meaning, as humans, we can't help but take that opportunity. Thanks for coming, and I'd love to take questions. Who's behind clean coal and who's behind anti-clean coal? Clean coal, there's the coal industry is behind clean coal. What's interesting is Jim Hansen just reported that Dick Gebhardt, who used to be one of the good guys, has been hired by Peabody Coal, the biggest coal company, I think, in the world, to lobby against climate action at $120,000 a quarter. This is the core of corruption in American politics. Everyone's got their price, right? What do what's it going to take? Can I get you to do that? It's unbelievable. So the coal interests, the fossil interests are enormously powerful. Here's the dirty secret. You want to solve climate? Get money out of politics. I didn't say that. John McCain did. So that is who's funding it. Now, who's opposing it? Every environmental group. One is pointing out clean coal is a misnomer. There is clean coal. It's carbon sequestration. Capture the carbon, put it somewhere, underground, deep ocean, whatever. But what the coal industry is saying is clean coal is the 1970s version, which means it's not emitting mercury. So that's the big lie, one of the big lies today. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. So I think a lot of the things that you're talking about are things that we're hearing, right? So I think that there's like a group of people you talk about, they say it's so easy and it's going to be easy. But I think a lot of the people like yourself are talking about it being hard. So from your view, what do you think about the big players that we hear a lot from? We hear from like Al Gore, the IPCC, like people that Obama is appointing to things. Do you think that they're on the right track or that they're on the wrong track? Acknowledging that it's going to be hard and there's all kinds of greenwashing that's bad. But do you think that the people that I'm naming and other people that you can name are doing the right thing, or are they like totally missing the ball?
That's an interesting question, because if you think about when Bush was running for president, he never tipped his hand as to how conservative he was, but he spoke in code. He talked about preserving the dignity of life, or whatever he said. But the extreme right wasn't that happy with him. When he got into office, he turned out to be this fanatic. Obama was not pleasing the environmental community throughout his campaign. He in turn was somewhat speaking in code. We all sort of said, we think we're going to like this guy, but I don't know. The day Obama, it was exactly the same as Bush. The day Obama got into office, he made an announcement on climate that knocked our socks off. It was far beyond anything we could have hoped for. Then he appointed a guy who knows more about solving climate and energy efficiency than anyone who won the Nobel Prize, Stephen Chu. Then he appointed every single person got it. Obama is completely understanding the challenge of climate, and he's absolutely on the right track. What is that track? First and foremost, it's sending a price signal on carbon and saying it's not free anymore to emit carbon. As an example, all my work is very difficult. Recently, I went to Minneapolis and talked to the cosmetics maker, Aveda. And he said, in the facility, I was like, why don't you do these lighting retrofits? And he said, do you know how much I pay for energy? 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Half what I pay. By the way, that's a dishwasher load, 4 cents. So everything that I barely pulled off and failed in, is twice as hard for him. So the key thing is you need this economic price signal so that when you pollute, it costs money. It needs to keep going up. So to answer your question, yeah, these guys are on the right track. It has to be a policy solution. It's not a grassroots solution. And I'm very hopeful, but the challenges are enormous. And the Gebhardt thing is an example. You know, the lobby, there's so much money fighting against change.
I can ask more things.
Okay.
I can ask you one more thing. Can you make fun of Fiji Green and tell me who's behind that campaign?
Wait, what is it?
Fiji Green. Have you seen this in the back of a
okay.
Fiji
Yeah,
bottle?
no, actually,
so can you just
Fiji.
hate on that for a while and go after that.
I like that. Let me hate on Fiji. I can't do that because
they claim that the trade winds are carrying the water here now. If you look on the back of the bottle, you see like the trade winds.
What you're getting at, Fiji actually. They have an office in Aspen, so Fiji is trying to be greener, and the idea of transporting water around the world to be green is kind of crazy. But let me flip it and turn it on me. You could have easily as asked, well, Mr. Schendler, or Auden, as I prefer you call me, how can you talk? You're from Aspen, where people fly in on jets from Europe, and then they ski, totally unnecessary, and then they buy a $5,000 hotel dinner. $5,000 dinner? There are people in Africa who for 5 cents a day could be saved from dying of cholera. This is bullshit. And I say you're right. And in a sustainable world, there's probably not going to be a heck of a lot of skiing or flying. But right now, we don't have a magic wand that says, you can't ski. Can you ride a bus? Yeah, you can ride a commuter bus, but not a tour bus. Actually, American society is pretty wasteful. No Americans. America, go away. Europe is 60% more efficient than we are. Yeah, but Japan's way more efficient than Europe. So no Paris. Paris, you can't have. We don't have the magic wand. And as much as we would like to, we have to fix the whole enchilada. We have to make it so that when I ski, or you ride a bus, or someone in India subsistence farms and uses diesel to pump water up, that the carbon impact of that is radically less. We have to fix the whole enchilada. So my response is, you like Fiji, you don't like Fiji, you can't make them go away. They are trying. We have to fix them too.
Very diplomatic.
Thank you. I have a contract with them, so I don't. Anything else? Well, thanks so much for having me, and I'm happy to mill around at the bar. You guys have a bar here, and chit chat with you. And my email is on the book, and I think they're copies of the book for you. And here's what I ask. Last thing: if you like the book, would you please tell someone about it? And here's why: I think it's the only funny book written about sustainability, and I also think you're going to enjoy reading it, which isn't always the case with some of these tomes that you have to plow through. So thanks.